Hello everyone from just outside the Bahrain International Circuit, right outside as you can see behind me. The Ferris wheel still nicely lit up, floodlights are on as work goes on preparing for this weekend's Bahrain Grand Prix, and preparations taking place in very hot conditions. It has been a warm and sweaty day. You should thank me for changing out my running kit, because I can tell you that was not a sight that anyone wanted to see. It's been over 40 degrees Celsius at times today. Driving down here hit 42 on the car readout. Certainly up over 39 on the track temperature gauges as well throughout the day. So a really hot day here in Bahrain after the much cooler temperatures that we got at Suzuka. But most of the talking points have not been about what's going to happen on the track this weekend. In fact, the major talking point was very much an off-track topic relating to the FIA today. And it's because today started with the resignation of the Deputy President for Sport, Robert Reid, who announced that he was resigning for what he called, and I quote here, a governance crisis at the FIA. And Reid was questioning lack of transparency, the way that governance was being run, that he just did not feel that it was serving the members properly. He hinted that he was no longer keen to serve power, he was meant to serve members and the sport. So he was not happy in announcing his resignation. And that's a really big shock, to be honest, in the sense that he was one of the most senior people within the leadership of the FIA. He'd been part of Mohammed bin Sulayem, the president's election campaign back in 2021, and then had been in the role of Deputy President for Sport since 2022. So he's been there by bin Sulayem's side, essentially, for a long time. But he's the latest in a long line of people to leave the FIA, unhappy at the direction that bin Sulayem is taking it, and certainly with changes to do with governance, to do with accountability, transparency. Really unhappy. The ethics and audit committees have been essentially changes, or critics say changes have been made that mean that now they report into just two people, including the FIA president himself. So there's been a lot of blowback on that front from members at the FIA. Certainly Dave Richards from Motorsport UK has been another very outspoken critic of the situation there. He's claiming that he was being asked to sign what equated to a gagging order, so a confidentiality agreement, to not talk about things that were discussed in certain meetings. And while he felt that a lot of it did need to stay confidential, that there were limitations that were being imposed that were unfair. And when he raised that, he was banned from those meetings. Now that happened earlier this year, but he published another open letter yesterday on the topic, and was even more harsh in terms of what Mohammed bin Sulayem is trying to do and the way that he is wielding his power within the FIA. So it's getting pretty dirty, it must be said, within the governing body. And we rarely actually then hear from bin Sulayem on the topic, because he's not always at many of the events. He's not been at a Formula One race yet this season, but he will be here this weekend. So we will hear more on that topic, I am sure, and he will get a right of reply, because that's the only fair thing to do as well. So stay tuned to hear how that goes down if he does speak on the topic. But as it pertained, one of the things that Reid was complaining about was that World Rallycross Championship, the promotion had been brought in under the FIA jurisdiction, apparently without approval from the FIA Senate and the World Motorsport Council, and that could potentially open the governing body up to leave it at legal risk from the European Union in terms of anti-competitive practices. So that was something that Reid was very unhappy about, and said was essentially the last straw from his perspective. The FIA did issue a statement recognising the work that Reid had done within the FIA, but also saying, hey, like, this is the reason we did this with World Rallycross, World RX, and defending its position without really addressing what he said, just saying the importance of World Rallycross and how successful it has been recently, but also the aims of trying to increase participation in motorsport, which is one of the core values of the FIA. So yeah, it's getting a bit messy, and it did then lead to drivers waiting in today. George Russell talking about it, saying that there's always bad news at the moment coming out of the governing body, and news of people leaving, and that you're not really surprised anymore, and you wonder who's next or what's next. But he says that the drivers trying to get involved has actually not really worked out. Every time they've tried to, nothing's really happened. So there's a bit of apathy there from George Russell, who is a director of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, the GPDA. So he is someone who speaks from a position of authority in terms of what all the drivers think. And yeah, he was fairly punchy on that front as well. There was also some interesting comments from Carlos Sainz of something that's been along the same lines actually, where Ben Sulayem and the FIA have been criticised for the fines they've been giving drivers and how big some of those have become. Well, Sainz missed the start of the national anthem in Japan by 5 seconds, he says. I must admit I wasn't there with my stopwatch to time him, but he said it was 5 seconds that he was late because he had some stomach discomfort, had to go to the bathroom, was actually given some treatment from a doctor as well, so he had a legitimate reason. The stewards did take that into account and actually lessened the fine from the €60,000 fine it would have been, the standard fine put in the penalty guidelines, which is one of the things the drivers are not happy about, the size of those fines. So they lessened it to €10,000, but he still said it was a pretty expensive poo. So it was a funny topic in a sense, but it was another bit of dissent from the drivers. It will be really interesting to see how this plays out over this weekend, because Ben Sulayem will be here, Stefano Domenicali, the Formula One president, will be here, and he's had a lot of backing from all the drivers recently. George Russell saying that the drivers have 100% trust and faith in Formula One and Domenicali. Now, they're both here because we're going to have a discussion about future engine regulations and power units, particularly V10s potentially coming back in the future. So that's going to be a meeting that is held tomorrow and was meant to really be the big off-track talking point this weekend. I thought that would be the big political battleground, but with what's happened today with Robert Reid and the fallout from that, I think they'll be multi-fronted where we're talking about the FIA and Ben Sulayem and his position. So plenty more of that to come. But also some new faces in FP1 to see. 6 rookies taking part for 6 different teams as part of the regulations. So I'll bring you news of how they get on tomorrow.